We've got 3 parties left. It is 5 o'clock, and it is our intention to finish all 3 parties tonight. So we want to get feedback from the parties and see if they want to break at 6 for an hour or power through. You're going to need to put your placard up. Yeah, Ms. Hike knows the drill.
I'm in favor of powering on through. Me too.
We're in favor of powering through.
Yeah. I'm one of the 3, and I'm in favor of that also.
Well, you probably carry more weight than the rest.
OCA is fine with powering through.
Are you going to resist that?
Yeah, we're good with powering through.
All right. What's that? Board Member Burns would like a break. Tough. All right. Court reporter, are you okay? Now that everybody is said. Court reporter, most important person in the room. So we're going to do one more and then we're going to take a break. What's that? A short break. Yes, not a long break. Okay. Lois Deiterman Revocable Trust. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you help me with your last name?
My mother's name is Lois Deiterman, and I'm Randy Bobolz, Randall, if my mother's mad.
Deiterman, and your last name Bobolz?
Bobolz.
Bobolz. Very good. Yeah, we go ahead and spell that for the record. Well, we'll get you sworn in first. All right. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes, I do.
Can you go ahead and spell your first and last name for the record?
Randall, Randall, Bobolz, Bobolz.
Thank you. Are you the same Randall Bobolz who filed pre-filed testimony and exhibits in this matter?
Yes, I am.
Do you have corrections to your testimony?
No.
Thank you. If asked the same questions here today, would you provide substantially the same answers?
Yes.
Would you like to move admission of your pre-filed testimony and exhibits?
Yes.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the board will admit and give the weight due. The board, we're going to allow the other parties. I think you've been here most of the afternoon, so we're going to turn you over to the parties, let them ask their questions. The board will have questions, and we'll try to... Okay. So we'll go with parties now. Mr.
Thank you. You're Mr. Bobolz, correct?
Yes,
According to your testimony, you've got some CRP ground and what you call government ground. Can you explain what those are?
I don't know the name of the other programs that it's in. It's with the wildflowers and the grasses and that kind of stuff.
And do you know, well, does the pipeline go through those areas if it's built?
If it stays on route, it's going to just miss it.
Will it impact it, however, do you think, or
Definitely will, yes.
how so?
I don't know if our government's going to make us stick by the rules or if that's going to till it up and therefore we'd lose our compensation for that, and also may take us out of the other program, I believe, as previous people have said.
And you've also said that this is highly erodible land?
It's good land, but we plan on contour, yes.
Okay. And do you have terraces?
No,
Are there any requirements that would be impacted by the pipeline regarding the highly erodible land?
it will head right down the hill through the contours. So we're going to lose part of the contour. They'll have to build those roads back up.
And you also mentioned some cattle and water for the cattle. Is that on the same a piece of ground?
My mother sold 20 acres last year with a feedlot and the buildings and everything on that. Some pastures on that. Our neighbor and our tenant bought this, and he also rents the ground. He's got a cow-calf herd that he puts on our ground, and he will feed a few calves out up on the feedlot, yes. The water he's concerned about, the reason why we used 20 acres is the well was away from the farm buildings. So that's why we went 20 acres to square things off. He's worried about if there is a leak in the pipeline that it could ruin the water.
Can we bring the KMZ file up, maybe to explain this a little better? So does this look like your property?
Yes, it does.
And the pipeline is that white line that goes east to west across the middle there. Do you see that?
I understand, yes.
And it looks like it makes a northerly jog there for a little ways. Do you know why it does that?
No, that's the first time I've seen this jog.
Okay. So where is this cattle area on the map?
It's directly south of that jog. If you want to move that up, you'll see the building site right there on the south of the farm.
Of that group of buildings there?
That's correct.
Is that your residence? Or?
That is what my mother sold. It hasn't squared off. I don't know the dimensions, but there's 20 acres of it that is kind of right there in the middle. We still own part of it on the east side, and then we own the pasture on the west side to the fence.
And so why did you mention the cattle and the water for the cattle in your comments?
My tenant has gone with me to a couple informational meetings, and that's bothering him a lot.
Okay. have you had any contact with the land agents or other representatives of Summit concerning some of your concerns?
I've had a lot of talk with those people. As I stated in my reference here, I know what I said. The guy started calling me as soon as we found out that we were part of this. We received the first offer with the wrong mail. The post office had my wife sign for it, even though she shouldn't have. It was addressed to me. So anyway, we got that, so I did know what the offer was. And it was a straight line through there. There was no jog. So like I said, I haven't seen that before. So he kept calling and asking if I would, consider that offer. I think I was called 2 times, and then the third time he knocked on my door in Elbert City. I lived 40 miles away from my mother's farm. We visited. Okay. Then he called back again, and it was getting close to hunting season. And I told him, I said, sir, you better be careful with your surveyors, because he was talking about surveying the land. He said, you better be careful with around there, because there could be some gunfire. He got all upset with me, and he says, don't threaten me like that. And I said, I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you, if we ever give you permission to survey, there could be hunters down there, so wear orange or something. He straightened out. He called me 2 or 3 more times. There was at least 6 times. The 7th time he called, I said, sir, if you call me again, I'm going to turn you in for a harassment. Because I believe the sheriff said that after 6 phone calls on the same thing, I could turn him in for harassment over a short period of time, which this fell in. So I never heard from him again. About 2 weeks later, this nice young lady stopped at my door in Elbert City. And it was very cold. We asked her in. She was short and to the point that she was here to try to have us sign this easement. And I said, we're not interested in the pipeline at all. Don't bother. Something, I'm going to back up a little bit. When the guy was talking to me, he said, you might as well sign now, because when we come through, and we're going to come through, we're going to use eminent domain to get your ground anyway. And so then anyway, this lady come. When we finished our conversation, I said, I think I'm going to be getting a lawyer. And she said, who? And I said, probably Domina. And I forgot to do it because she never called back. I didn't ever call Brian. And then when it got pushed to shove later on down the line, it was too late, so here I am.
Did you receive an Exhibit H notice that had a map on it?
I did, and I didn't bring it with me, but I did not notice that bump in there. I did notice on the east side, just starting on the east side, there's a little 10-foot by the road. I think it's Warbler Road. Right by the road, there's a little 10-foot section in there. I don't know if that's for a valve or park equipment or what it's for. It isn't explained on the back very well. Or might be explained well, but not for me to understand.
Did you talk with the land agents about an alternative route?
Nope. We don't want it. And we told them not to survey it either.
And did they?
They did. I asked the gentleman that talked to it first to let me know when they were going to survey. I made the mistake of telling them that the Bryan County Sheriff and I would be out there to visit with them before they went on the land. I went up there the day that he called me and told me what day they were coming. I drove up to the 40, 45 miles, whatever it is, sure. Sat there from 8 o'clock in the morning till I got his phone call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon saying they had something else come up and they wouldn't be there. So I twiddled my thumbs for 8 to 4.
The farmstead or whatever it is, just south of your land, somebody lives there?
Off and on. So he does. He has a hired man that lives there most of the time.
And about how far is that house from the pipeline route?
Approximately a quarter mile.
Where would the closest emergency management personnel be if there were a rupture in the pipeline?
Sutherland, Iowa is about 6.5 miles south. Hartley is about 9.5 miles north. And Primgar is about 9 or 10 miles to the west. All of them are volunteer departments.
Do you have any knowledge of what area would be impacted by a pipeline rupture?
Well, if we knew what the plume was, maybe. But seeing how that's a secret, we can't, I don't know. If it does do at 8 inches, 1,800 feet, that's going to get pretty close to the cattle lot, and there is some pasture there that if they would happen to be in the pasture. Also, about 1.5 miles down the road, if it would follow kind of the creek that goes to the neighbors and stuff, there's a 4,000 to 5,000 dairy cattle herd. They take baby dairy cattle and raise them to up to heifers for breeding stock, and then return them back to the dairies that they got them from. So if it would be a 24-inch pipe, that's about 16,000 feet, I think it is, because it's not just 3 times what an 8-inch line is, it's 9 times. And so then it could bother those cattle. And other houses to the west also.
In your written testimony, you were asked if there was anything you'd like the IUB to consider, and you mentioned that there may be other means of extracting carbon. Do you have any idea what those might be?
I'm not a scientist, but I have heard that they can help make methanol with it. I believe Iowa State is, I've read an article that they're pelletizing some of this and spreading it back on the ground, and we can put it down before the corn and beans are planted, or maybe it's after they're planted and are growing, because they really like carbon dioxide, and will help us and give us the oxygen. So that's just a couple things I've heard. I guess there's many other things that they're looking at, and like the guy before me said, not commercially yet, but they got to get their ducks in a row before they do that.
I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Grunhagen?
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Mr. Bobolz, did I say that correct?
I can be Randy too.
Okay, like that. I just have a couple of follow-up questions from Mr. Taylor talked with you about. You mentioned that you have a farm tenant,
Yes.
and is that for all 3 parcels
Yes.
that are shown there?
Yes.
Okay. Did someone ever ask you if you had a farm tenant?
I don't remember them asking, no, but I'm not saying they did or didn't. I don't recall them asking me.
Okay. And then I also kind of want to ask you about how much of this is pasture and how much is tillable, because it's a little difficult to tell from this. So I'm going to split it by parcels. Okay. So the northernmost parcel, is that in row crop production?
There is some CRP or something else there. So that's a 40-acre parcel, right?
I believe so, yes.
So I would say 15 acres out of that is non-tillable.
Do you know approximately where that's located? Is that located along the pipeline route toward the bottom of the parcel?
No, it isn't. It's comes right up to the pipeline route along the west side. Yeah, and then there's a space there, and then along the north road. That's in CRP. That's the part I know is in CRP.
You said the north. Could you repeat that again for me?
The north part of the north section.
Is in CRP.
Yes. There's also a small creek in there too.
And so the parcel kind of in the southwest, so kind of the middle parcel there, is that a stream going through there? Or a creek going through there?
Right next, just south of the pipeline, there is a little stream that starts at our place and goes into the neighbors to the west.
And is that in pasture or is that CRP there?
There's a little government program stuff there, and then to the very south, there's just a little bit of pasture there. Probably less than 5 acres total. The rest is in row crop.
And that in the southwest parcel there?
Yes.
Okay. And so about how many acres do you think is in row crop? Roughly.
That one would be 30 to 35.
And then the parcel that's to the east?
That's 100% row crop.
That's all row crop. Okay. And do you have two different crops planted there?
Corn bean rotation, yes.
Okay. That's why you see different colors.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's why you see different shades of green there. Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Ms. Kaufman? Mike?
Okay, Mr. Bobolz, I wanted to ask you about your tenant. You said he went with you to a couple of meetings and that he has cattle, and I wanted to know about if there's a well on the property.
There is a well towards the south end of the acreage that we sold him. Excuse me, to the north end of the acreage that we sold him. That's why we ended up selling 20 acres instead of just the acreage itself, because the well is over the hill and down in the valley.
So it's on his land, but it's close to the pipeline, correct?
It's on his land, but it's still probably a quarter mile away from the pipeline, or maybe a little bit less.
Did he express concern about the well or the well water, or just the?
Very, very concerned. He told me, and I have not looked into it, but he said water and CO2 make some kind of poison, or kind of ruins the well water. So that's the only well on the place, and so yes, he was very concerned about that. That's why I took him to the meetings.
And I also wanted to ask you about when you were talking with the land agent, they kept coming back, and after you told him you really weren't interested, and he said you better sign or you would lose it to eminent domain. Did he have knowledge that they were going to use eminent? How would they have knowledge that they were going to use eminent domain?
He said, you know, if you don't sign with us, we're going to use eminent domain and go through. And
you do realize that these hearings are to determine whether or not we will use eminent domain, so they didn't really know that.
well, I'm sure. Well, yeah, right. And I blew that off pretty easy because
Well, I was just wondering why you thought he said that.
I have no idea why. Because he is hired by Summit and wants to get access, have us sign an easement instead of trying to have to use eminent domain because they didn't know if Summit had enough power to use eminent domain.
Do you feel like you have a lot of power?
I don't have any power. But I hope us as a group can convince the IUB that eminent domain is not the way to take money or our land, our water, our mineral rights. You know, if there would happen to be minerals under there, our mineral rights are gone too. Sounds like they can go any place they want to over the farm if they change the route or whatever. I'm not sure where the driveway is. I know it's not right there, so they told us how many feet of crop they would pay us for, which I don't know if it doesn't include driving down the crop that's there to get to where they're going to their corridor.
Yeah, but excuse me. Do you believe that this is an appropriate use of eminent domain?
Definitely not.
Would you be surprised to know that it's been widely publicized that 78% of Iowans do not support eminent domain for private gain?
I've heard that through the Des Moines Register, that is 78% of their poll or whatever it is. And I also think they need 90%, so I hope us 12% hang in there pretty tough.
No more questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jorde, before we go any further, just a quick reminder, cross our questions based on the witness's previous testimony. We really need to limit it to that. Mr. Jorde, go ahead.
So, in quantifying, sir, the number of hours, you said you've gone to meetings, read through documents, waited for hours when Summit said they were going to be there and didn't show up. How many hours would you estimate, best guess, you've invested in this?
Probably 500 or so, maybe some more.
And no compensation from Summit for that?
No.
And you had said that, which county is your ground in? I don't know if that was established clearly.
So O'Brien County?
O'Brien County. So you're aware that they're proposing a 24-inch diameter pipeline through O'Brien County?
It just says up to 24 inches at 4 feet deep. And I just talked to a Tyler that said, and he brought up our map on his computer. He said that where they are going, the 5 feet would be the minimum he would suggest. And if it goes either way very far, east or west, north or south, they said they should go 7 feet. And right now with the tile lines that we have in there, they're not mapped or not mapped very good if they are mapped. But the tenant says that he thinks that the route that we have right now will not interfere with any tile today. Down the road, will we tile some? maybe, but
Well, when you reference the route right now, obviously you said you didn't know the route now affects 3 of your parcels as opposed to the 2. So that prior conversation was based on the understanding it was a straight line across only 2 parcels, right?
correct.
And Summit hasn't provided you any justification of why they need to affect yet a 3rd parcel in your ground there.
I haven't heard anything from Summit for 6 months.
And if they haven't provided any evidence before this board of why they should affect 3 of your parcels as opposed to 2, if this is approved, would you agree they haven't provided any justification for why they need eminent domain on that 3rd parcel?
Absolutely.
You had mentioned the 1,800 or so feet of a non-worst case scenario plume traveling from an 8-inch pipe, but if yours is 3 times the nominal size and 9 times the volume, would you suspect a worst case scenario in O'Brien County and around your land would be multiples of 1,800 feet?
Correct.
And Summit has failed and refused to provide you with any of that information, correct?
We haven't seen a thing on it.
Yep. And do you suppose that's because they realize this pipeline isn't as safe as they claim it to be?
That would be a good assumption. I think they like to keep things very secret and tell us as little as possible.
And given that you've been threatened with eminent domain and you told them not to survey, they didn't respect you and they surveyed anyway, would you agree that this isn't a company that should be allowed the privilege of taking your land and others via eminent domain?
Yes, they cannot be trusted and they have no experience in this in the first place. So I think it's a bunch of rich guys that got together and said, hey, here's some easy money.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Hike.
Hi, Randy. Christine Hike. I'm a landowner as well. Just one question about your land. Just want to see if you have anything else you want to say about your land.
Objection, Your Honor.
State your objection.
This has been asked several times by Ms. Hike. It's not an appropriate cross-examination question. It's perhaps the broadest direct examination question I could imagine.
Ms. Hike, you can respond to the objection if you'd like.
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I can just say, I don't know why he can't. I mean, I've asked others, so why can't he answer?
The objections were not raised at that time.
Why?
That is not, the board is not, the board can only respond to an objection. I don't know why parties object or don't object to things. Sorry, okay.
I can't answer that.
Summit has objected to that. Ms. Hike did not have a response, so yes, that objection was by de facto sustained, I suppose. Are there questions from any other parties? Okay, questions from the board? All right. You may now redirect yourself, which means you may make corrections or clarifications on the questions you've been asked this afternoon.
Okay, well, if the eminent domain is used, I don't understand why Summit would have the possibility to use or to sell that pipeline to somebody else. If they have to use eminent domain or if we send an access to it, I think it ought to stay. Personal feeling, I think they better stay and run it or hire somebody to help run it, but I still think it needs to be in their name. The previous person did say a lot about LLCs. I hadn't thought about that. I think that's a question that I'd have to get legal advice on, but they're also asking for LLCs and for all the water that they use too, and that's a great concern not only to our tenant but to the to the cities and everybody else in that same aquifer. And going back to the meetings, Mr. Powell, and I think it was in Spencer, but I'm not sure because I've been to several meetings, but he said that this wasn't a hazardous material, and it's just like the air that we breathe every day. And I don't know where he pulled that out of, but he missed the boat on that one. And I don't understand why things are kept so secret, why we don't know what where's the transparency? Where's the plume models? They did one in South Dakota, so why can't they do one here that can share with the landowners, the people that they're going to steal the land from? I guess we've already asked about the breakdown, if there's a breakdown and will ruin the water supply. And I've also talked about being deeper than 48 inches. I guess that would be something, I don't know how eminent domain works, if we would be able to talk about digging it deeper or not. I don't know about that, but I don't know. I've talked about our land agents that were, the first one was kind of a smart aleck. Like I said, we haven't worked, we didn't talk any more dollars and cents. He asked me if I had a dollar amount in mind. I said, you give me $1 million after taxes and then we'd think about it. He says, well, he couldn't do that. Well, I knew that when I said it. I guess I mentioned that they can take our mineral rights and stuff like that. It's not that we have any minerals, but that's still something to keep in mind. There's also a part for a driveway. I've said that. Would they pay for the driveway so we could farm both sides of the pipe? Or because if they're digging a trench through there, and it happens to be planting or harvesting season, it's going to be in the way. And I guess I've talked to ethanol, or they say that the price of corn will go down. This last gentleman also said that the DDGs is also sold back to the farmer. And then the wet cake will probably go to cattle people. So there's still going to be a market. We're going to have to feed those pigs and cattle something. So there's going to have to be, the market is not going to go away. I'm 100% in favor of ethanol. And I just think there's a lot of different things that they can do other than pipe it to, I guess I don't know where it would be piped to right now because South Dakota and North Dakota have stopped them. I guess the last thing that sometimes I feel that this hearing is kind of a waste of time and our taxpayer money because Rostetter has Reynolds in his pocket and the IUB board has been handpicked by Reynolds. Not that you guys won't think on your own. I'm not knocking you guys, so don't think bad of me for saying that. But I kind of wonder if the pipeline hasn't been made before this meeting was even started. Now I know in Nebraska and South Dakota, the Public Utility Commission is elected and not appointed by the governor. So that might be one of the main reasons why it didn't go through in Nebraska or through North and South Dakota. And with that, I better be quiet before I get in trouble.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Let's sit down. Okay. Take. We'll do a quick 15-minute break, and we will be back here shortly before 6 o'clock. We will be moving to John Van Wart next, followed by the estate of Bonnie Wallace.